In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent.
It's time to recognize that we've come to a turning point. We're threatened with an economic calamity of tremendous proportions, and the old business-as-usual treatment can't save us. Together, we must chart a different course. We must increase productivity. That means making it possible for industry to modernize and make use of the technology which we ourselves invented. That means putting Americans back to work, and that means, above all, bringing government spending back within government revenues, which is the only way, together with increased productivity, that we can reduce and, yes, eliminate inflation.
The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Hello and welcome to Inform America. I'm your host, Rich Merrett. Today is February 12th, 2020. Before we get into the show, I just got a few housekeeping issues here. I'd like to ask people to go to the Boston Broadside newspaper, check them out. I'm in support of a newspaper who tells me the truth and is trying to grow. I'd like to see them grow and some of these other rag sheets shrink around here. So anyway, if you care to, check out Boston Broadside. Secondarily, and I keep mentioning this, and I've been with the National Liberty Alliance for years now. I think it's 7 years, 6 or 7 years. I can't even remember. Anyway, the information that they have, the education that they have on their webpage is second to none as far as civics, government in general, and you can't beat it. Go to the site and check it out. It's have your children go there. They'll learn something that they won't get anywhere else. I promise you that. Thirdly, as I do every week, I'd like you to ask you to support my book, Stand Your Ground. And the name is appropriate because you should stand your ground. We'll get into that a little bit later. But you can find the book, Stand Your Ground, on Amazon, Kindle books. There'll be a flyer put up during the show. And in the flyer, there is a link. If you click on that link and you'd like to have an autographed copy from someone famous like me, I'll be happy to autograph it for you, especially if it's some of you guys out there that I used to work with. Be an honor to sign it for you. So check it out, see what you think. Today's show, I want to, first of all, before I even get started on that, I wanted to tell people so they know kind of where I'm coming from. I've never been a Republican in my life, and I've never been a Democrat in my life. And I never will be either one. What I am is an independent, but more importantly, I'm an American. I'm for the rule of law, and I support the Constitution because that's what our founding fathers drafted for us. And it should mean something more than what it does today. Having said that, I've got a clip here that I wanted to show you, and there's very important things in there. It's from Ronald Reagan, and before you change the channel, I'm not a fan of Ronald Reagan's. I don't care for the man. What he did was supported the multinational farm industry way back when, wiping out a lot of small farms across this country. And I particularly didn't care for that in him, and I still don't. But there are certain things that he said in some of his speeches that made perfect sense. This is one of them, and I'll talk about it when we come back. Right now, we'll put it up. It's a short video.
Ladies and gentlemen, we take pride in presenting a thoughtful address by Ronald Reagan. Mr. Reagan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you and good evening. The sponsor has been identified, but unlike most television programs, the performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we face in the next few weeks. I have spent most of my life as a Democrat. I recently have seen fit to follow another course. I believe that the issues confronting us cross party lines. Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good. But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future. No nation in history has ever survived a tax burden that reached a third of its national income. Today, 37 cents out of every dollar earned in this country is the tax collector's share. And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in. We haven't balanced our budget 28 out of the last 34 years. We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. And now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world. We have $15 billion in gold in our treasury. We don't own an ounce. Foreign dollar claims are $27.3 billion. And we've just had announced that the dollar of 1939 will now purchase 45 cents in its total value. As for the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. Do they mean peace, or do they mean we just want to be left in peace? There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past, and among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader. And he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy. Because he'll find out that we've had a decline of 5 million in the farm population under these government programs. He'll also find that the Democratic administration has sought to get from Congress extension of the farm program to include that 3/4 that is now free. You'll find that they've also asked for the right to imprison farmers who wouldn't keep books as prescribed by the federal government. The Secretary of Agriculture asked for the right to seize farms through condemnation and resell them to other individuals. And contained in that same program was a provision that would have allowed the federal government to remove 2 million farmers from the soil. At the same time, there's been an increase in the Department of Agriculture employees. There's now 1 for every 30 farms in the United States. The wheat farmers voted against a wheat program. The government passed it anyway. Now the price of bread goes up, the price of wheat to the farmer goes down. Meanwhile, back in the city, under urban renewal, the assault on freedom carries on. Private property rights so diluted that public interest is almost anything a few government planners decide it should be. In a program that takes from the needy and gives to the greedy, we see such spectacles as in Cleveland, Ohio. $1.5 million building completed only 3 years ago must be destroyed to make way for what government officials call a more compatible use of the land. Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. But we're against those entrusted with this program when they practice deception regarding its fiscal shortcomings, when they charge that any criticism of the program means that we want to end payments to those people who depend on them for a livelihood. They've called it insurance to us in 100 million pieces of literature. But then they appeared before the Supreme Court and they testified it was a welfare program. They only used the term insurance to sell it to the people. And they said Social Security dues are a tax for the general use of the government. And the government has used that tax. There is no fund. Because Robert Byers, the actuarial head, appeared before a congressional committee and admitted that Social Security as of this moment is $298 billion in the hole. At the same time, can't we introduce voluntary features that would permit a citizen who can do better on his own to be excused upon presentation of evidence that he had made provision for the non-earning years? Should we not allow a widow with children to work and not lose the benefits supposedly paid for by her deceased husband? Shouldn't you and I be allowed to declare who our beneficiaries will be under this program, which we cannot do? I think we're for telling our senior citizens that no one in this country should be denied medical care because of a lack of funds. But I think we're against forcing all citizens, regardless of need, into a compulsory government program. especially when we have such examples as was announced last week when France admitted that their Medicare program is now bankrupt. They've come to the end of the road. But we're against doling out money government to government, creating bureaucracy, if not socialism, all over the world. We set out to help 19 countries. We're helping 107. We've spent $146 billion. With that money, we bought a $2 million yacht for Haile Selassie. We bought dress suits for Greek undertakers, extra wives for Kenya government officials. We bought 1,000 TV sets for a place where they have no electricity. In the last 6 years, 52 nations have bought $7 billion worth of our gold, and all 52 are receiving foreign aid from this country. No government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size, so government programs once launched never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth. Federal employees number 2.5 million, and federal, state, and local, 1 out of 6 of the nation's workforce employed by government. These proliferating bureaus with their thousands of regulations have cost us many of our constitutional safeguards. How many of us realize that today federal agents can invade a man's property without a warrant? They can impose a fine without a formal hearing, let alone a trial by jury, and they can seize and sell his property at auction to enforce the payment of that fine. In Chico County, Arkansas, James Weir overplanted his rice allotment. The government obtained a $17,000 judgment, and a U.S. Marshal sold his 960-acre farm at auction. The government said it was necessary as a warning to others to make the system work. Because back in 1936, Mr. Democrat himself, Al Smith, the great American, came before the American people and charged that the leadership of his party was taking the party of Jefferson, Jackson, and Cleveland down the road under the banners of Marx, Lenin, and Stalin. And he walked away from his party and he never returned till the day he died. Because to this day, the leadership of that party has been taking that party, that honorable party, down the road in the image of the Labor Socialist Party of England. Now, it doesn't require expropriation or confiscation of private property or business to impose socialism on a people. What does it mean whether you hold the deed or the title to your business or property if the government holds the power of life and death over that business or property? And such machinery already exists. The government can find some charge to bring against any concern it chooses to prosecute. Every businessman has his own tale of harassment. Somewhere a perversion has taken place. Our natural unalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation of government. And freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment. And that is the issue of this campaign that makes all the other problems I've discussed academic, unless we realize we're in a war that must be won. Alexander Hamilton said a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? Thank you very much.
What do you think? That speech was 40 years ago. I'm reaching out to the people today. I hope I reach out to them who say, I don't want to discuss politics. No, I don't talk politics. It's all too negative. Those are the people I want to talk to. I hope you listen to the speech. I hope you, by the way, this is over 40 years ago. So when he said you pay 37 cents on the dollar for taxes, it's way, way over that now. You've got the TSA and Homeland Security, hundreds of thousands of maybe millions, I really don't know the number, of people more putting on the federal payroll, not to mention what's loaded on in the state, county, and city. Those are the things that people allow to happen to your government. And that's what the message is today. You people that don't want to have politics, or you don't want to discuss politics, well, guess what? You're paying for it. Why don't you want to discuss it? Why don't you want to know about it? You want to give the government your money and turn your back on them, which is one of the things Reagan said. The people who have the most to lose are putting up the least resistance to losing it. Does that make sense to you? Because that's what's going on. That's what's going on. You're losing your rights. You're losing your property. You don't own your property. And anybody out there who's, oh, this guy's nuts, he doesn't know what he's talking about. There is no allodial title in the United States of America. You don't own your house. If you think you do, stop paying taxes on it. Real estate taxes. Just try it and then come back and tell me. And for those of you who say, well, you got to pay taxes. No, you don't have to pay taxes. If you have no one in the school system, if you plow your own road, you take the garbage to the dump, all right? You don't call the police because you never bother. What is it you do? And by the way, read the Constitution, please, because it'll tell you differently. But you don't want to do that either. Laziness, stupidity, and ignorance is what is going to get us where we're headed down the road. When Reagan said, you know, the people that are putting up the least resistance have the most to lose, is that you? Because you are. The people that don't want to talk about politics, you're the most guilty in our society. You continue to give money to the government, but you don't want to know. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to turn my back on them. I'm going to abandon my Constitution. All right? The Founding Fathers put everything into this, and they were brilliant people, and now we turn around and abandon this. Who cares what they do? That's what we do. Who cares? What do you need to know when the opening of the show you've heard 4 presidents warn you about what's going on? And the powers that be, the puppet masters, the people that dominate this planet, are more powerful than the President of the United States. But what they're not more powerful of is the people on planet Earth. And if the people wake up, starting to smarten up, and start reading the Constitution and the laws, things can change. The only way they're going to change is if the people wake up. There is no other way. If you think Trump's going to save you, or Hillary, or anybody, hey, vote them into office. Vote them into office and see. They're not going to. They're not going to. It's up to you. You have to. The government is taking your money. All right, and I know that Jerry Day used to say this, and it was kind of funny at the time, but it's true. They're eating your lunch. You're paying for lunch money, and it's like a bully takes your lunch money. That's the government. Pay them, but I don't want to know what they're doing. You don't want to know that they're criminals? You don't want to know that they're violating the very law that your forefathers, or the Founding Fathers, created for you, for your safeguard. You don't want to know that? What is it you want to know? Dancing with the Stars? Or that other one, the killing the zombies, or Walking Dead, whatever the hell it is. That show is about us. We're the Walking Dead. We don't know any better. I'm suggesting to people that they smarten up. I don't want to know. I don't want to discuss politics. Politics is what you should be discussing. They said, oh, I don't talk politics and religion. Those are the 2 things you should be discussing. Because one of them gives you morals, values, and principles, especially for your children. I don't care what you believe, but it gives them it gives them a foundation. And the other one is politics, which is your government. Tom D'Ambra, he's got a show, What's Going On YouTube. You should watch it. It's very good. He's a good guy. Anyway, one of the things he says at the end of the show is, it's your government. Take responsibility. No, that's the key word. Your government, not someone else's. So, oh, I'm going to elect this guy. He's going to, Bernie Sanders. Yeah, there's a good communist for you. I'm going to elect Bernie. He'll take care of me. One thing for the young kids out there, because I want to say this before the show closes. Please remember this. The free market system works. What isn't working right now is the fact that the free market system has been taken over by communism, or Bolsheviks, or whatever you want to call them, from 100 years ago. They've been infiltrating the planet, every country, not just us. But they're here, the communists, and they're taking over. The kids think that this system we have in place, the free market system, doesn't work. It works if the people watch over it. What you want to do is you want to elect somebody and says, okay, give me free stuff. Give me free stuff. Yeah, what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, we'll give you free stuff, but we're going to rationalize health care. And if we don't think you need that surgery, hey, guess what? You ain't going to get it. We're going to rationalize your food. We're going to rationalize your gas. We're going to rationalize your education. How's it sound now? Pretty good? You try to stop them. You can't do anything now. What makes you think you're going to do it when we're communist? I'm suggesting that you wake up. America, wake up. Okay, everybody, we're in this together. I don't want to... Like Reagan said, and I don't care if he said it or anybody else, but I happen to believe it. If America falls, the rest of the world's going with us. Our freedoms, our liberties are gone. Are gone. And the people that dominate this planet, and they are sick people, they're going to be in control. And one of the things I'm pretty sure of is they're going to come after me and kill me. But you know something? I'm going to speak my mind. I really don't care. I really don't care. I'm going to speak the truth. Because I can't live. I think George Washington said it best. And I'm trying to think of it now. I'd rather live on my feet than, no. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. It's very true. It's very true. I thought I was free until I found all the enslavement mechanisms they put us under, and we don't even know about. I'm asking people to wake up. This is a serious matter. Our country is in jeopardy. There's a coup d'etat going on. The people on the local radio station here in Manchester, every morning, it's the only station that has been clear at my house, unfortunately, but I got to listen to them for the weather. And here's what I get. Here's what you need to know. Fluffy the cat got stuck up in a tree, and the fire department rescued her. And I'm saying, oh, I need to know that. Yeah. The world's coming unglued, but I need to know about Fluffy the cat. And there's, I'll try to be nice. This lady just continues every morning. Here's what you need to know. It almost sounds like you're being indoctrinated. Here's what I need to know. You're telling me what I need to know? How about if I make that choice? I'll tell you what I need to know. All right, but this goes on all the time. And then they proceed. And by the way, the ones that said, I don't want to talk politics, they're men and women. Predominantly women, though. Predominantly women is from what I've heard, my little circle. And I'm going to assume that I don't want to talk politics, I want to keep positive. Well, the negative world that's around you isn't going to get positive because you don't want to confront it. So my advice to you is that you confront it. You start reading the Constitution and understanding it, that the statutes, codes, rules, and regulations that the legislature up here in Concord do, they don't apply to you. It says it right here in the law. Does that mean anything to you, or do you want to believe what someone else tells you? Because this is your law. Wake up. Read the Constitution and understand it. It's your law. All right, with that, I'd like to ask people to please share this show. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Hopefully you'll pass it along. With that, by the way, somebody said to me they saw today on Trump is a bad guy and everything else because the mainstream media is feeding you this stuff. Whether he is or he isn't, find out for yourself. Stop listening to what people tell you. Do your own homework. With that, God bless. God bless America. I hope things work out for all of us.